All right, so again, hopefully you guys are having a good Thanksgiving break. Um, Today I'm gonna do, or in this video, I guess I'm gonna be recording the Fridays lesson that we did, and then as promised, I'm gonna do all four of the worksheet problems. I know I didn't do it in the last video because I got tired of doing it, but I'll do it for this one. So again, first things first. Um, we're just going to start by doing the same thing that we were doing on the previous day. So you want to find your excluded values. So let me just share my screen real quick so you guys can know what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to start by finding our excluded values. So make your denominator equal to 0. So you have x plus 3 is equal to 0. And your second denominator is x plus 6, and make that equal to 0. So we're going to solve for x. So how do I get rid of this positive 3? You subtract 3 on both sides, so that's what we're going to do. Minus 3, minus 3. So x is going to drop, the 3's are going to cancel. With 0 minus 3, that's just negative 3. Same thing over here. How do you get rid of this positive 6? You subtract 6 on both sides. You subtract 6. With 0 minus 6, that's just negative 6. So x cannot be negative 3, and x cannot be negative 6. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do is just cross multiply. So jump straight into your cross multiply because you guys don't like to do LCD. Unless you guys prefer to do LCD, I would recommend doing that then. But over here, since the majority likes to do cross multiply, that's what I'm going to do in this video. Now, what do I have circled in my blue circle? You have an 8 and an x plus 3. So that's where you're going to put 8 and x plus 3. What do I have circled in my green circle? It's an x and an x plus 6. So that's what we're going to put. X messed up a bit, but here we go. And then your symbol in between is an equal, so keep that in equal. Now we're going to distribute. So what's 8 times x? You have 8x. 8 times positive 3, that's 8, 16, 24. X times x is x squared. And then x times 6 is positive 6x. And now, you always want to move everything, since we have an x squared and an x, you want to move everything to the side where your positive x squared is. So do we have a positive x squared on the left? No. So do we have a positive x squared on the right? Yes. So we're going to move everything to the right side. So how do I get rid of this 8x? You subtract the 8x on both sides. So that's going to cancel. 24 is going to drop. The x squared is going to drop. And then positive 6x minus 8x is just negative 2x. Now again, we move everything to the right. So how do I get rid of this positive 24? You subtract 24 on both sides. So the 24s are going to cancel. So you'll be left with 0 equals square drops. Negative 2x drops. Negative 24 drops. And now we're going to do our favorite thing of A, B, C. So your A is going to be 1, B is whatever's next to x, which is negative 2, and C is your constant of negative 24. So on top, you put your A times C, so negative 24 times 1, which is just negative 24. And the bottom, you put your B, which is negative 2. So what are two numbers that multiply to negative 24 but add up to negative 2? And that's going to be negative 8. Wait, no, negative 6, I meant, and positive 4. So now you're going to rewrite your polynomial by replacing the middle term of negative 2x with the negative 6 and negative 4. So you have x squared minus 6x plus 4x minus 24. So now we're just going to do our grouping. So how many x's are there in x squared? There's 2, so x and x. Negative 6, or 6x, I mean, is just 6 and x. 4x is just 4 and x. And now can you rewrite 24 as 4 times a number? Yes, 4 and 6. And now we're going to circle what they have in common. So the first two have an x in common. What we didn't use on top was an x. What we didn't use on the bottom was a 6. And then your symbol in between was a minus. The last two have a 4 in common. What we didn't use on top was an x. What we didn't use on bottom was a 6. Symbol in between, minus. So they both have an x minus 6 in common. And then our leftovers is x plus 4. So now we make that equal to 0 and solve for x. So equals 0. And then you have x minus 6 is equal to 0. And x plus 4 is equal to 0. So how do I get rid of this negative 6? You add 6 on both sides. So with 0 plus 6, that's just going to be 6. So x is equal to 6. Now, same thing on the right. How do you get rid of this positive 4? You subtract 4. So 0 minus 4 is just negative 4, and you're done. Now, we have to make sure that negative 6 and negative 4 isn't part of our excluded values. Positive 6 and negative 4 is not part of our excluded values. So both of these answers are good, and we're done. All right, so that's it for the first problem. And if I'm going too quickly, you guys should be pausing the video and writing it down. But I'm moving on to number 2. So on number 2, this one's a little bit different. I'd recommend doing the LCD for this problem, but you can still do cross multiplying. The way you know when you have to do LCD versus cross multiplying is usually what's it called? You do cross multiply usually when it's a small thing like x minus a number and x plus a number, and then you have an x squared, like a longer one on the third one. Over here, there's two of the same ones on the opposite sides. And that's how you know usually when you have to do LCD, when they're the same ones on the equals, on the different side of the equal. So usually you would have to do LCD for this. But you can do cross multiply, and that's what I'm going to do here just so that I stay consistent with the way that you're doing it. So first things first, it doesn't matter which method you're doing, you have to find your excluded values. So over here, make the denominator equal to 0. So x minus 1 is equal to 0 and x is equal to 0. How do you get rid of that negative 1? You add 1 on both sides. 0 plus 1 is just 1. The x is going to drop, so x is equal to 1. Over here, same thing. It's already x equals by itself, so it's x is 0, 0. So x cannot be 0, and x cannot be 1. Now, you can cross multiply. So you're going to circle your diagonals. And now, what do you have circled on your blue circle? It's 2 and x minus 1. So write 2, x minus 1. What do I have circled in my green circle? It's x and x. So write x and x. And then you have your symbol in between, which is a minus. And that's going to be equal, or again, this one is where it's a little bit different. Usually we just make it equal to the top or the numerator, which is 1. But over here, what you're going to do is on the bottom of what you just cross multiplied, put your denominator. So x and x minus 1. And now make it equal to that whole fraction this time. So it's 1 over x minus 1. All right, let me let it clear up. All right. Usually we would just, what's it called? Distribute or clean it out and then just solve for x. Over here, what I would recommend you do is the following. So over here, you're just going to go, you can cross multiply again if you want. But what I would recommend is first distribute that top side of the left fraction and clean it up. So you have 2 times x, which is just 2x, then 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2. Negative x times a positive x is a negative x squared. And now rewrite the rest what you have. So x minus 1 all over 1 over x minus 1. And now, again, you're going to cross multiply. So you have this circle and that circle. So what do I have circled in my blue circle? It's a 1 and an x minus 1. So it's 1 x, x minus 1, and that's going to be equal to x minus 1, because it's over here, of 2x minus 2 minus x squared. Now, start canceling what they both have in common. So on the right side, we have an x minus 1. On the left side, we have an x minus 1. So we can just cancel those out. So over here, cancel this stuff out. And now what am I left over on the left? 1 and x. So what's 1 times x? That's just x. And on the right, I was left with your 2x minus 2 minus x squared. And now we don't want to have a negative x squared. We want to move everything to the positive x squared side. So since we have a negative x squared on the right, we're moving everything to the left. So I'm going to start by adding x squared on both sides. So the x squared is going to drop, plus x is going to drop, and then you're going to drop everything else. So 2x and then negative 2. Now, how do I get rid of this negative 2x? The positive 2x, I mean, you subtract 2x. So the x squared is going to drop. Positive x minus 2x is just negative x. And then this is going to cancel. The negative 2 is going to drop. Now, how do you get rid of that negative 2? You add 2. So you go plus 2 on both sides. So you have x squared is going to drop. Negative x is going to drop. And positive 2 is going to drop. And that's going to be equal to 0. And now you will do your ABC and factor for this problem. But unfortunately for this one, if you do your ABC, look, your A is going to be 1, your B is going to be negative 1, and your C is going to be 2. On top, you have a 2, and on the bottom, you have a negative 1. Is there a number that you can multiply to 2 but adds up to negative 1? Unfortunately, there isn't, because negative, if you had a negative 2 times negative 1, it would be negative 2, not positive 2. So what you're going to have to do is, unfortunately, your quadratic formula and do x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a and solve for x. So let me just write it like this. So you have x equals your negative b, which is opposite of b. So what's the opposite of negative 1? Positive 1. So 1 plus or minus your square root of b squared. So negative 1 squared minus 4ac. So 1, 2 all over 2 times 1, or 2 times a, which is just 2 times 1. And now again, we're just going to solve. So x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of what's 1 squared? That's just going to be 1 minus what's 4 times 1 times 2? That's just 8 all over 2 times 1, which is just 2. But this here is just 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 7 all over 2. And that there is just the same thing as 1 plus or minus the square root of 7i all over 2. So I'm writing it up here or down here. So x is equal to 1 plus or minus square root of 7i over 2. And you're done. Fortunately, this one is a little bit harder. Unless I made a mistake somewhere, which is possible, but I don't think so. So again, these do end up being a lot of problem. You could do LCD, which I'm pretty sure would have been a little bit easier. You would still gotten the same thing though. You would have to do the quadratic formula. So I'm gonna move on to number 3. Number 3 is the only new type of problem we get. So over here, you see how you have a small denominator of x. Hold on. Is it gonna let me clear you? See how you have a small denominator of x minus 4 and a small denominator of x minus 2. So the way we're gonna do these problems is by you have to move this to the same side as the small one. 2 small denominators equals to a big one. So how do I get rid of negative x and x minus 2? You add it. So add x over x minus 2 to the other side. So you'll have what you had on top, which was 1 over x minus 4 plus x over x minus 2. And that's going to be equal to 2 over x squared minus 6x plus 8. Let me let it clear. And now you do what you usually did. Find your excluded value. So I'm going to do it on this right side so I have enough space. So on the first denominator, I have x minus 4. So x minus 4 is equal to 0. And on the right side, I have x minus 2. So make that equal to 0. So solve for x. How do you get rid of this negative 4? You add 4 on both sides. So x is equal to 0 plus 4, which is just 4. How do you get this negative 2? You add 2 to both sides. What's 0 plus 2? That's 2. So x cannot be 4 and x cannot be 2. And now in this left side, we're just going to cross multiply and start solving for it. So circle your diagonals. So what do I have circled in my blue circle, I mean? It's x and x minus 4. What do I have circled in my green circle? It's 1 and x minus 2. Your symbol in between is a plus. And then make it equal to the top part of your numerator, which is just 2. All right, now just start distributing. So x times x is just x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Positive 1 times x is just positive x. And positive 1 times negative 2 is just negative 2. That's going to be equal to 2. Now, let's first combine these ones. So what's negative 4x plus x? That's just going to be negative 3x. So you have your x squared minus 3x minus 2 is equal to 2. And since we have a positive x squared on the left side, we're going to move everything to the left side. So minus 2. So your x squared will drop. Your negative 3x will drop. And then negative 2 minus 2 is just negative 4. I didn't mean to cancel that. I made a mistake. That's an equal to 0. Now you're going to do your ABC and solve for x. So, or factor, I mean, A is 1, your B is next to your x, which is negative 3, and your C is going to be negative 4. So on the top part, you put your A times C. So if negative 4 times 1 is just negative 4. On the bottom part, you put your negative 3. And now, what's two numbers that multiply to negative 4 back up to negative 3? So negative 4 and positive 1. So we're going to rewrite our polynomial. So x squared minus 4x plus x minus 4. And how many x's are in x squared? There's 2, so x and x. 4x is just 4 and x. X is just x, and then 4 is just 4. So what do the first two have in common? They got an x in common. What did not use on top is an x. What do we not use on bottom? A 4. Symbol in between, minus. What do the last two have in common? Nothing. So we put a 1. What do we not use on top is an x. What do we not put on bottom? Or use on bottom, I mean, is a 4. Symbol in between is a minus. What do they both have in common? X minus 4. What are the leftovers? X plus 1. And now make that equal to 0 and solve for x. So you have x minus 4 is equal to 0 and x plus 1 is equal to 0. So how to get rid of this negative 4? You add 4 on both sides. So you get x is equal to 0 plus 4, which is just 4. On this right side, you subtract 1 on both sides. So x is just equal to 0 minus 1, which is just negative 1. So make sure that negative 1 or 4 is not part of our excluded values, which positive 4 is. So we have to go all the way down, cancel this one, and then your answer is x equals negative 1, and you're done. So that's all we did on the worksheet. On the notes. Most people didn't get to the worksheet. I think on Friday, everybody was working on the quiz for the remainder of the period because it was believe a semi-short day on that Friday. Yeah, because it was assembly day. Or we were on assembly schedule, I meant. But this is the second type. So over here, we're just gonna go straight into the problem. Okay, let me just let this clear the worksheet. Since the worksheet's only 4 problems, I will be doing everything with you. So first things first is find your, what's it called? Your excluded values. So let me just let it clear a bit more. Okay, so on the first denominator, if it wants to work, or maybe not. All right, there it goes. So for your first denominator, you have a 3x, so make 3x equals 0. Your second denominator is 6, which you don't have to worry about because the number 6 is never going to be equal to 0. So you just have to solve for x for the 3x. So how do I get rid of this again? There we go. How do you get rid of this 3? You're going to divide by 3 on both sides. So divide by 3. So what's 0 divided by 3? That's just 0. So x is equal to 0 is going to be the thing, and x cannot be 0. So for these types of problems, there is a second way you could do it. And matter in fact, I'm just going to make you guys do it the second way. It's a lot easier, actually. So you see how you have two denominators that are the same? The 3x and this 3x? We're going to move this fraction to the same side as this one. So right here, you have a positive 2 over 3x. So let me just rewrite the same problem that we had. So you have 2 over 3x plus 1 over 6 is equal to 4 over 3x. So you have two denominators that have a 3x. Let's move everything to that same side. So how do you get rid of this positive 2 over 3x? You subtract it. So 2 over 3x minus 2 over 3x. So these here are going to cancel, and that 1 over 6 is going to come down. So you'll be left with 4 over 3x minus 2 over 3x. Now, you see over here how they both have the same denominator of 3x? When a fraction, when you have two of them that have the same denominator, you can just combine them. So you'll have 1 over 6 is equal to, on the bottom, 3x. Then you just combine the top. So you have, here, let me clear it up before I do this so you guys don't get confused. Okay, you have 4 minus 2 will go on top. But what's just 4 minus 2? That's just 2. So I'm going to rewrite it one more time. 1 over 6 is equal to 2 over 3x. And now you could just cross multiply. So circle your diagonals. So what do I circle in my blue circle? It's 2 and 6. What do I circle in my green circle? It's 1 and 3x. And your symbol in between is an equals, so keep it an equal. So what's 2 times 6 on the left? Because we're distributing. That's just 12. And that's going to be equal to what's 1 times 3x? That's just 3x. And we're just going to divide. How to get rid of this 3x? Or this 3? You divide by 3 on both sides. So you'll be left with, well, 3's canceled. So you'll be left with x equals, what's 12 divided by 3? That's 9, or 4, I mean. So x is going to be equal to 4. And now we just have to make sure that the 4 is not in our excluded values, which our excluded value was 0. So we are done. So I recommend you actually do it this way. And if you're watching the video, then you got lucky because you saw the easier way. If you were, unfortunately, for those who are not watching the video, I taught them the harder way. But there is this way you can do. And that's how we're just going to do it from now on, okay? So let's move on to number 2 for the worksheet. So much easier now if we do the way that we were doing. So you see how there's two denominators that have, or here, first let's do with our excluded values. So excluded values, you have x minus 3, the first denominator equals 0. Second denominator is x equal to 0. Now, how do you get rid of this x? How do you get rid of this negative 3? To solve for x, you add 3 on both sides. So you'll be left with 0 plus 3, which is just 3. Now, what about on this right side? It's already x equals something. X is by itself already. So x cannot be 0 and x cannot be 3. Now, I'm going to rewrite the problem that we originally had. So you had 2 over x minus 3 plus 1 over x is equal to x minus 1 over x minus 3. Now, you see how we have two fractions that have x minus 3 in the denominator? Let's move them to the same side. So since this one's already by itself, let's move this one to the right side. So minus 2 over x minus 3 minus 2 over x minus 3. So this is going to cancel. This 1 over x is going to drop. It's going to equal to x minus 1 over x minus 3 minus 2 over x minus 3. Now, over here, since on the right, they both have x minus 3 in the denominator, we could just combine them. So it's x minus 3 of x minus 1, which is top, minus the second top one, which is 2. So again, 1 over x. Now let's just simplify. So what's negative 1 minus 2? That's just negative 3. So you're left with x minus 3 over x minus 3. And now we could cross and multiply. There's one thing you could do right here further if you notice it, but I'm just going to leave it at like if I didn't notice it. So cross multiply. So what do I circle in my blue circle? It's x and x minus 3. In my green circle, it's 1 and x minus 3. And now I'm going to distribute. So you'll have x times x, or here before I distribute, there's something you can notice if you look at this problem, which just gives you your answer, but I'm saying distribute if you don't see it. So x times x is just x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. That's going to be equal to, distribute on the right side again. What's a 1 times x? That's x. And 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. All right. So now we're just going to solve for our x over here. So how do you get rid of this negative or this positive x? You subtract x. Well, I meant to put it in a different color, but it doesn't matter. So you have x squared is going to drop. What's negative 3x minus x? That's negative 4x. And that's going to equal to negative 3. Now, or it should be in green, but yeah. Add 3 to both sides to get to the other side. So you'll be left with x squared minus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. And now A, B, C. So A is going to equal to 1, B is equal to negative 4, and C is equal to 3. So what's two numbers that multiply to positive 3 but add to negative 4? And that's going to be negative 3 and negative 1. So you'll have x squared minus 3x minus x plus 3. But we don't want there to be a negative here, so we're going to make this a plus and this one a minus. Now, how many x's are in x squared? There's 2, so 1, 2. 3x, just 3 and x is just x, and 3 is just 3. So what do the first two have in common? They got an x in common. What do we not use on top? An x. What do we not use on bottom? A 3. Symbol between, minus. Now, what do the last two have in common? They have nothing in common, so we put a 1. But we're going to take the bottom symbol, so negative 1. What do we not use on top? X. What do we not use on bottom? 3. Symbol in between, minus. So what do they both have in common? X minus 3 and x minus 1. Or x minus 1 are leftovers. So x minus 1. Make it equal to 0 and solve for x. So remember, it's just going to be the opposite. So this is going to be x equals 3, and this one's going to be x equals 1. Now we have to make sure none of these are in excluded values. If we go up, x equals 3 is one of our excluded values. So this one we're going to cancel, and this one right here is going to be our answer. And you're done. All right, so we just did the first two problems. And we're about to go to our second one. All right. Can I go on to the back side? Let's go to number 3. So for number 3, again, you have those x minus 2s. So first thing I'm going to do is this one's actually going to be a little bit harder. But here, make your denominators your excluded values. So x minus 2 is equal to 0. And then the second one's x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. So how do you get rid of this negative 2? Add 2 to both sides. So 0 plus 2 is just 2, so x equals 2. This one, add 4 to both sides. So you're left with x squared is equal to 4. How do you get rid of a square or of a square? You square root both sides. So x is equal to plus or minus 2. So since the plus one's already here, if it wants to focus, since your positive 2 is already right here, it also can't be the negative 2. So x cannot be 2 or x cannot be negative 2. All right. And now I'm going to rewrite the problem that we have down here. So 2x over x minus 2 plus x plus 2 over x squared minus 4 is equal to x minus 2 over x minus 2. So since we have two fractions that have x minus 2 in the denominator, let's put those on the same side. So since this has x minus 2 over here, and this one has an x minus 2, but this one's already by itself, let's move this one to the right side. So to get rid of it, you got to do the opposite. So minus 2x over x minus 2, minus 2x over x minus 2. So those cancel. This would drop. So x plus 2 over x squared minus 4 is equal to x minus 2 over x minus 2 minus 2x over x minus 2. And now we can combine these two. So again, let me just write the left side one more time. So you'll be left with x minus 2. But over here you have x minus 2 minus 2x. And now let's combine this top side a bit more. So x plus 2, x squared minus 4. X minus 2x is just negative x minus 2 all over x minus 2. And now we could cross multiply. Circle your diagonals. What I circle in my blue circles, it's x squared minus 4 negative x minus 2. That's going to equal the green circle, which is x plus 2 and x minus 2. Now, you could distribute this left side. I'm not going to do it because I see something. So look, I'm just going to leave this left side how it was, x squared minus 4 and negative x minus 2. And that's going to equal to, on this right side, what's x times x? Or actually, you're going to have to distribute the right side. I just realized. Oh, no, this is a plus 2. That's why I made a mistake. All right, what's x times x? That's x squared. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. X times positive 2 is positive 2x. And negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4. You see how over here, these negative 2 and positive 2, they're just going to cancel. So on the right, you'll be left with x squared minus 4. Over here, you have x squared minus 4 again, negative x minus 2. So do we see how over here we both have x squared minus 4? Since we have those, they can cancel. So you'll be left with negative x minus 2 is equal to 0, since there's nothing on the right. Now, add 2 to both sides. So negative x is equal to 2. Get rid of that negative 1. So x is equal to negative 1. Is negative 1 one of our excluded values? It isn't. So that is their answer, and you are done. All right, so these problems do get extremely long. You have to start thinking a lot, which I know you guys don't like to do, but unfortunately you have to do it. All right, I'm gonna be moving on to the next one, the last one. So the last one's an easy one. All you have to do is cross multiply. So circular diagonals. Circular diagonals. So what do I circle in my blue circle? It's x and x plus 5. What do I circle in my green circle? It's x minus 3 and x plus 2. Symbol in between is an equals. Now distribute. X times x squared. X times positive 5 is 5x. What's x times x squared. X times positive 2 is 2x. Negative 3 times x, negative 3x. And negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Symbol in between is an equal, so keep it an equal. Now, since you have an x squared on both sides, you could just straight up just start canceling what they have. So x squared and x squared. And now you'll be left with that 5x is equal to, combine these two right here. What's 2x minus 3x? That's negative x. So negative x minus 6. How do I get rid of this negative x right here? You add it. 5x plus x is a 6x, and that equals to negative 6. How to get rid of the 6? Divide it. So you get left with x is equal to negative 1. Done. And we forgot to do this, but find your excluded value. So again, first denominator is x plus 5 equals 0. That's going to give you x is equal to negative 5. And the next one's x plus 2 is equal to 0. So that's going to give you x is equal to negative 2. So x cannot be negative 5, and x cannot be negative 2. Is negative 1 one of these? No. So this is our answer, and we are done. So that was all Friday's work. I did all the work for you, basically. So I want to hear no complaints about not getting a signature for Friday. So I'm just going to stop recording, and then I'll upload this. And I hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving, and I'll see y'all next week.